Human resources are the unofficial psychologists, event planner, peacemakers, lawyers, teachers, and much more for an organization. And one such individual is with me today who shall help us explore more about HR. Hi, I am Prashant, a learning enthusiast, and you are listening to the Relearning Podcast. And today we have Aadesh Goyal, who shall help us break few myths around HR and how going back to basics helps us staying consistent and relevant. Aadesh has a working experience of 35 years in which he has performed global roles in over 5 continents and has only changed 4 organizations. He's serving as a CHRO, that is Chief Human Resource Officer with Tata Communications, and has expertise in various fields of P&L management, software, information technology, program management, operations, and many more. Adesh is also on the board of many companies, academic institutions, industry associations, startups, and NGOs, and plus he's an angel investor. He's a huge promoter and teacher of happiness program of Art of Living, which we will get to in just about some time. Welcome to the show, Adesh.
Thank you very much, Prashant. So happy to be there with you talking about topics that both you and I like to pursue and chat with friends.
Well, first things first, and this is one question I've been itching to ask. That you have so many, you have 35 years of experience, 5 continents, so many people have walked, and has been in touch with you with the experience, and you've changed so many roles. What made HR as that constant in your career so far? Because I realized you went to different roles in engineering, sales, and so many hats you wore. What was that constant that brought you back to HR at all times?
Yeah. See, that's a very interesting question, and I can only give you an answer looking back, right?
Sure.
Because when I was doing all that, I actually didn't have much clue why I was doing it.
Right.
And basically, the rule that I've followed, in my work life is that if the company asks me to do something, I will just go ahead and do it. I have never said no to any assignment, any project, any role. And what that did for me, especially early on in the first 10, 15 years, you know, every role has a certain focus area, certain priorities, certain things that you need to learn, certain ecosystem that you have to understand and be a part of. And if you're doing a particular job, it's like wearing that colored glasses. So you see, if you're in marketing, every solution that you'll come through will be like a marketing person, right? If
Yeah.
you are if you have a small problem and you go to a surgeon, the surgeon may start thinking about surgery, but if you go to a physician, they may say, oh, it's a normal fever. So the more glasses you wear, your ability to see more and more part of the world, and business increases, right?
Hmm.
And I never said no, and I even got an opportunity to work in HR. And what I loved about HR is that it is not something that can be defined very easily, right? You can write what HR is on
Yes.
paper, but I find that the possibilities are infinite when you're in HR, and you can actually do almost anything, right? You get a plain paper, right? What people expect from you are limited things,
Yeah.
but what can be done is infinite. And I love business, I love technology, I love operations, I love processes, and most of all, love working with people. So I get all those opportunities working in HR.
No, that's really nicely put. So to begin with, you're saying whatever came on the way, you accepted and said no to, never said no to anything. If not HR, what would have been that second best role as per you for you?
I would say I would have been a technologist and a software programmer.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Although my childhood dream was to become a doctor, but after I started to work, I even dream about one day going back to software and becoming a software engineer.
What are some common myths that you come across in HR? And you spend the maximum time in HR, right?
See, the myths are many, right? That one of the myths, right, is that all the salary increases and promotions are decided by HR. If an organization is going through restructuring
Yeah.
and they are in a situation where they have to lay off some people,
Oh,
they say it's decided by HR. And myths are many,
yeah.
and one of the myths is HR doesn't do anything. They're just
Oh,
there,
yeah.
somehow control it, and they're just there to arrange picnics.
Picnics,
So
Rangoli
there's so many
competition.
myths.
Rangoli
Huh?
competition being the famous one, right?
Recording competition and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, this is very interesting point, right?
See if you see, go back 10, 15 years, right? 15 years is, I think, too long, maybe even 10 years. You had many examples around you. If you see at least the future generation, the previous generation, and definitely the, previous to previous generation,
Right.
people would tend to work in one job, right?
Huh.
So
Yeah.
whatever you learned, whatever degree, academic qualifications you had, and then the rest of it mainly came through on the learning on the job.
Hmm.
And people felt that, hey, I have already completed my academic qualifications, I am
Right.
working, I have experience, I don't need to learn anything, right? But in the last 3, 4, 5 years, the half life of a skill and what's the capability that you need has significantly reduced,
Hmm.
right? Earlier, maybe you need only one or two, reinventions of yourself in
Yeah.
a career of 35 or 40 years. But
Right.
today, you need to kind of reinvent every 3 to 4 years. And I think even 3 years is a long time today, right?
That is true.
So the myth that you don't need to sharpen the edge, right? And I would even say not just sharpen the edge, but even develop a new knife
Hmm.
and then keep sharpening it
Interesting.
is a need today, right? I think the second myth is that it's my manager or my company who has to provide me opportunity for learning, right? If they're
Hmm.
not providing me, what can I do,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I think that is a big myth. And just like you take personal responsibility for entertainment,
Right.
for meeting your friends, for going on picnic, for taking vacations, one must take personal responsibility for learning.
Hmm.
What the organization provides you should be a cherry on the cake. It shouldn't be the cake.
Very nice. I think that that's a beautiful answer. I'm going back to the first myth that you just said, staying relevant, because that's very that leads me to the next question. How did you stay relevant and how did you stay consistent? Because you said two things. You said it's my own responsibility to upskill, and at times to sharpen the skill, I also need to sharpen the knife itself or change it altogether. Could you elaborate that?
Yeah. You see, I can talk about it confidently today because I'm looking back into the future and seeing what happened,
Hmm.
right? It is not possible to make a plan which is
Right.
so specific, and then just simply live to it, right? So we all need to leverage our own experiences and experiences of other people that we trust, right? So because I was always curious
Hmm.
and I never labeled myself as this or that,
Right.
whatever job was being offered to me, I was happy to take it because I said, hey, I'm curious, I want to know more about it. And I did not label myself that I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm an HR person, I'm a marketing person, I'm a finance person, I'm a lawyer,
Hmm. Hmm,
right?
hmm, hmm.
See, the moment you label yourself, then you have reduced your universe,
Interesting.
right? That's one limitation. The second limitation is then you start looking at everything from the glasses of who you define yourself as.
Hmm. So your values
Yeah.
hit that box that you have surrounded yourself with.
And
Interesting.
that's a self-inflicted that is a self-inflicted wound, right?
Nice. Nice.
So somehow and it must be because of how I was groomed in school and home and college, or what opportunities I got, or who my friends were. I was just simply curious. And When I graduated from BITS Pilani, right, and that was in 1985,
Hmm.
every person who was in IIT or BITS, they were being hired mainly for two jobs. Right?
Okay.
One was for sales and marketing,
Uh-huh.
and the second was for software, right?
Okay.
Because there was a sudden need for software people,
Right.
programmers at the time, and no institute in India had a computer science department, right? Only one or two had, right?
Ah.
And they were within the maths department usually, right? So whosoever was coming from these colleges, they had done programming, right? I had done enough programming in college, and I was sure that I didn't want to be a software guy or a salesperson,
Okay.
right? I was sure about what I didn't want to be, but I was not sure about what I want to be,
I,
right?
you hit a point of this, right? And this happens. You're sure about what you don't want. When is that turning point when you knew, okay, this is what I want? When was that?
Yeah. Yeah, so see, that became an advantage for me
Hmm.
because I had not labeled myself.
Uh-huh.
I was almost continuously exploring, right?
Interesting.
So what I believe is that in the first few years of your career, one needs to be a generalist. So you need to learn about multiple areas as diverse as possible
Right.
and go deep into it as much deep as you can, but keep changing in the first few years.
Fantastic.
And then choose your vocation and say, this is what I would like to focus on, and then dive deeper into it. And at the third stage, you must dive into at least one more deep area,
Hmm.
right? But still continue your broader journey, right? So you have to keep learning laterally and you have to keep tunneling vertically. That's when you develop, I would say a good comprehensive perspective and good sharp expertise areas, right?
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I don't know when that actually happened, right? So, for example, I started my career as an executive assistant, right? And I
Okay.
was lucky. My first boss was Sam Petroda, right? And I
Nice.
still thank God for it because what I learned in that environment working with him is priceless, right? There are not many guys like him that come, they come
Yeah.
only from time to time,
Yeah.
right? And then I got a job to work in as a rotation. Okay, so work in HR, right? And then I worked in business HR. Then I
Right.
worked in technology transfer and partnership management.
Okay.
Then I came back into HR and in the area of organization development. Then I went back into corporate communication, right? And
So I'm
those
just
are for
trying to
7 years.
figure out, you is there, okay, let's do it the other way. Which department you have not worked in?
So if you ask me, there are two main categories of roles that I've never done. Right,
Okay.
one is
You have
finance,
some. Oh, you
and
have, okay. I thought there are
one is
no.
finance, and one is legal.
Okay. Okay. But very close to what you do. So yeah, okay, fair enough. Finance and legal.
I would say I would give you a yin and yang of
Sure.
of this point, right? That if a river does not have a destination, it becomes a pond, right? And pond, has a very high risk of becoming stale and dirty.
Yeah.
But when the river is flowing, it is nice, clean. It has a momentum. It has an energy. So in life, one needs to have a destination, right? So when you have a destination, then you will automatically start thinking about how do I reach that definition? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What do I need to meet? What do I need to get to know, etc., etc. Right? The second is that everything in life cannot be straitjacketed just
Mm.
to live a plan or a target, right? So you must have a lot of unplanned, not related to any goal,
Yeah.
learning,
Yeah.
journeys, whatever, reading. Because the more you read, the more you look at different perspectives, the richer your journey becomes, the more fun your journey becomes. And I think our mind works in such a way that whatever we are seeing, reading, learning, it keeps creating these intersections, right?
Mhm.
And the more intersections that happen, the more curiosity it generates. The more curiosity you have, there's a natural tendency in human mind to solve,
How? Yeah. Why?
the
How? Yep.
and then you
Yep.
keep solving problems. You start innovating. So I think it is something that all of us must cultivate, and we should not give it low priority, right? So
Interesting.
if I'm in finance, I say I don't need to. Why should I learn about anything else, right? I think over a longer period of time, I think it is a mistake.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully put, and I have too many takeaways from that answer. Well, thank you for sharing that. Uh, let me ask you a future question now that we've spoken enough about your experience. In terms of HR, and this year has been really crazy, right, for everyone. What do you foresee, which some of the things that will definitely change?
See, I think the speed of digitization in Asia will definitely change, like every other business, right? So
Right.
studies have shown that if technology curve for advancement is like this, right, at
Mm.
the top, then the
Right.
business curve for adopting technology is below that, right?
Okay.
And then the HR curve for adopting technology is even below that. So in most organizations, HR tends to be a somewhat laggard or a follower in technology, right?
Okay.
However, if you say Tata Communications, we have been the leader, right? So when the pandemic happened, we did not have to change anything in HR, right? So 90% of our learning, right? So we did last year before the pandemic, we did about 90,000 training days, right? So approximately 7.5 days of learning per employee per year, and
Wow.
when the and 90% of it was digitally delivered.
Right.
So when the pandemic happened, we actually didn't have to do anything because everybody
Mm.
was used to learning online anyway. So
Yeah.
this year what has happened is we have gone from 90 to 100%.
Wow.
Most of the organizations had to go from
Yeah.
less than 10% towards 100%, and because it takes long time to digitize and make it viable and useful and impactful, most organizations would be experiencing a
Yeah.
very significant drop in overall learning volumes, right?
Yeah.
For us, learning volumes are going to increase this year. Even despite the pandemic, we are going to do more training per employee per year this year than last year, right? So I
Fantastic.
think digitization is going to be a big deal, right? And I think uh, and I'll come back to digitalization. I think the second thing is that the hybrid way of working will become the norm now, right?
Right.
Which I think is quite amazing,
Yeah.
right? Because it gives employees flexibility
Mm.
to create more balance in their lives,
Yeah.
right? And so I believe in future, and I'm talking in a general manner, that in the knowledge based types of organizations, right? I'm not talking about manufacturing
Right.
or field operations, or say pulsing. Those are very very different jobs, or say airline, right? They'll be in the type of tech industry, right?
Yeah.
That we are in. I would say about two-thirds of the people would be doing hybrid work,
Uh-huh.
which means 2 or 3 days working from home, two or
Right.
three days working from the office,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then the rest of the people, maybe half of the one third, they would be working only from office because there are
Yeah.
certain jobs that need to be done from office, right? If you're running a data center,
Mm.
if you need to do some specific physical checks, some of it can be done remotely, but there are some things like installation there,
Yeah.
doing wiring or doing maintenance. Those things will need to be, done if you're running a security operations center, for example.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some jobs that could be done only from home, right?
Fantastic.
And different companies will adopt it to different degrees. But I would think this will be a formula. And what this will do is it'll be good for employees to bring more balance in their lives
Mm.
and pursue non-work related aspects of their life much better. And what it will do for the companies is it will help them hire talent,
Right.
which is more geographically spread over
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because today you need to relocate people to where you are, right?
Right.
And as workplaces become more geographically spread out, it will start developing the tertiary towns and cities,
Yeah.
work related stuff more, and local infrastructure, this that will become better. So, and from the point of view of digitization,
Yeah.
when you bring digitization into anything, it creates immense possibilities on how you can do things, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And when learning is fully digitized, right, it's now a platform based, learning is a
Yeah.
platform now at Tata Communications, right? And it is available 24 by 7 by 365.
Yeah.
And everything is self-service. And you can learn what you want to learn whenever you want to learn, including weekends, including when you are at an airport. And learning is bit and bite size. You can pace it because
Yeah.
you don't need to follow what others are doing in the classroom. You can learn it at your own speed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can actually increase the scope of your learning, right?
Yeah.
So at Tata Communications today, anybody can learn about anything, right?
True.
And if you say based on what role you're doing, the intelligence is driven by the algorithm behind the scenes is intelligent. It is
Right.
giving you what's relevant for you. And if you choose a particular destination career or a role, it starts to send towards you, learning alerts that are relevant for that.
Yeah.
So that was not possible earlier at all,
True.
right? So
True.
it creates immense possibilities when you adopt technology.
No, and again, and thanks. That's a very future fit. But I also realize that Tata Communications already adopted these, and pandemic or no pandemic, the direction was to get into this space. So I think that way, uh, I shouldn't say, but the timing was right. But digitization and the digital platforms, it's 100% there. But that brings me to another question, Adesh, is that one cannot take the value creation that happens in a classroom, that there is no experience than a person to person interaction, right? Example, I would have loved to meet you in person and have this conversation. Things would have been very different. Uh, why I ask this, because a lot of papers are also saying that once things going to settle down, the vaccine is already out, there will be a springboard effect, which means in simple terms is people will splurge a lot in travel. They will splurge a lot in going to plays. There'll be a lot of plays, a lot of movies. In corporate, if I have to think about that, that's the teams haven't met for more than a year now. There has not been any classroom session. What is your opinion, or your thought on this aspect, the springboard effect that will happen once vaccinations they're already out? So what is your view on that?
See, right now there is a pent-up demand,
Hmm.
right? Which means because of a crisis type of a
Yeah.
forced situation, people are not just working from home; they're kind of locked into the room,
True.
right? In their homes,
Yeah.
right? And so whenever it becomes safer and much safer to go out and do normal things that we're used to doing, the pent up demand is going to come out,
Yeah.
like a soda from a soda bottle, right?
True.
And yeah, I think that's going to happen, and that's natural. And I think the second thing is human beings like to connect and spend time with other people, right? And that's why people would want to work from the office, right? And if you see today, we are only doing planned interaction. So every
Yes.
time you want to meet
Yes.
somebody, you organize a meeting, right? And
We.
planned meetings have a certain purpose, they have a
Yeah.
good value, but there are many things that don't happen in a planned meeting, right?
Yeah. The
Which
water
means
cooler.
you run to somebody, right? Off the cuff discussion. Hey,
Exactly.
by the way, I'm facing this problem. What do you think would be the solution?
Yeah.
You know, lot of collaboration, creativity, problem solving, innovation does not happen in a only virtual environment.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's why working in a collaborative manner, together, being present in front of each other is very, very important. So, you know, we will go back to that type of a balance, but balance will shift somewhat, right?
Yeah.
Because people now know,
Yeah.
managers know, leaders know, employees themselves know that you can actually effectively work from home. So that will also come into our life for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, and thank you for that. Like, this just gave me a good insight of the water cooler conversations, the chai
Exactly.
conversations, and these are rich conversations. These are informal but very rich conversations. Example, and I'm sure you get this a lot. Even for, let's say, for your little break that you walk, there are 10 stops that you take, and these are the stops for either starting a new conversation or something to assimilate or some knowledge gain, and that is being missed, right? Leads to another segues to another question. What has been one of your recent relearning experience that you enlightened? Okay, I went back to basics, and you know what, I used to do this way, and I'm happy that it's back. What has that been for you?
Let me, I'm sure I'll think of a specific example. I'm not getting that into my mind, but,
Sure.
on this whole aspect of relearning, right? I think there are two ways to look at it, right? One way is you have to relearn only if you have reached a point where you suddenly realize that whatever you knew is no longer relevant,
Hmm.
right? So basically, if you want to go from place A to place B, you are in your own, mood. You're not
Yeah.
even looking at where you're driving. You keep driving, thinking that this road will lead me to B, and suddenly you realize that you are nowhere near B, right? So that's when you have to start rerouting and saying that, hey, I need to now relearn, right?
Interesting.
The second way of looking at it is that if you have been doing continuous learning, why do you need to relearn?
Hmm.
Right? So, for example, if you're like a stone lying, or a small, like an island on the water or lying at the bottom of the water, as the river keeps flowing over it,
Yeah.
the sharp edges go away over time and you become rounded,
Yeah.
right? So, if you keep learning all the time, you make it into a habit. My sense is then you don't need to really relearn.
Fair. Fair.
Yeah. And the the example that comes to my mind is a small one on relearning, right?
Sure.
Some few months away back, one of my children, my son or daughter, I don't remember, sent me a tip that when you're using your iPhone and
Hmm.
you need to move the cursor across the text to change something or add something, you can simply press on the space bar
Ah.
and move the cursor like a pointer, which I had not no idea about, right?
Okay.
And so that see the beauty of learning something new technique is it creates a wow, it creates a wonder, it creates some positive energy, right?
Hmm.
And you say, wow, I was doing this, trying to move this like this, and it's like 3 4 hits,
Yeah.
but now it works like magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the beauty of relearning is it creates wonderment, and whenever you have wonderment, there is positivity, and
Nice.
there is a spring, and that keeps taking you forward.
Ah, nice. You're a huge advocate of mindfulness, and you're also a teacher with art of living. So how did that come about, and could you give us some insight about mindfulness and how has it helped you?
Yeah, so I've been a student and a practitioner of mindfulness for about 20 years now. Actually, 20 years this December
Ah.
so I'm on the 21st year now.
Wow.
And it's been life changing for me. And this was a chance encounter. So my wife, who is also, student and a practitioner and teacher. She saw somewhere where we live in Palamia, Gurgaon, a sign, this is July 2000,
Okay.
that, some art of living course. And she was in her own business at the time. And she was quite intrigued by it. So she called them and they said, we do this, we do that. And she just went there just to explore it.
Nice.
And she liked it. She started practicing it. And after a few months, she used to regularly share her experience. And I saw many, changes in her. And I said, hey, I must do this too. So I went and did that. And that has since been, it's been life changing for me. And,
Nice.
mindfulness is actually an oxymoron.
True.
If you practice, what is called as mindfulness, actually the mind becomes empty, right? So it's not full
Yeah.
at all. So to that extent, it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But I would define mindfulness as a heightened sense of awareness, right? Of full awareness, right? So,
Hmm.
for example, there are phases in our lives when we are very stressed out at our job,
Yep.
right? Or there are some challenges there, or you may not be having a good relationship with your manager at that time, or you're not getting the right project, or maybe you are not getting the promotion or a job that you deserve, you
Right.
feel you deserve, etc. Right? And sometimes it becomes such a big thing on our mind that we believe our life is, what is the purpose?
That's it. Yeah.
But that if you are a student of this spirituality, you would ask your right. You'll be more aware and say, "Am I only my job, or am I more than my job?" Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you start knowing yourself better and you start knowing life better, then you start celebrating life, right? And the ancient Indian practices of yoga and breathing and meditation and Sudarshan Kriya are now being recognized by science, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people used to believe, including in India, that these are all airy fairy stuff. But now, if you Google meditation,
Yeah.
you'll get 500 hits,
So
and big magazines, big
yeah.
universities are talking about it as a must-do thing for people and leaders.
Thank you so much, Adesh. I'm going to the next round, and these are not the Aadesh Goyal that we know from HR. These are could be your very personal things. So allow me to do this rapid fire question round with you. You don't win any
Sure.
hamper here. Uh, I'm not sure how motivated are you with this, but it's just a promise. Whenever we meet, wherever we meet, the drink that you have, either a coffee, chai, or any drink that you have, that's on me. Hope
Lovely.
that works. Okay. Super. So, and again, the questions are from my end. The answers have to be really rapid, so no time to think there, right? So, first one, what has been an awkward moment during a webinar or a session that you're trying to deliver?
See, the most awkward moment is when your Wi-Fi gives away.
Okay, sure. Very relatable. I'm sure that's happened to many. How recent was that?
I was in a webinar last month, and nothing happened. Everything is stable. Only when I started to speak, something went wrong.
The fun part is the only sound that goes is am I audible? After that, nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That is a great answer. Second, if time travel was possible, which era would you go to and why?
I would go to the era when people were just starting to develop tools.
Okay. So you'll go back. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go back.
Okay. And why?
Because, there is, I find adventure in the thought of actually seeing what I've read about.
Ah. Nice. So you're connecting dots there.
Absolutely.
Nice. Good answer. Thank you. Okay, this one is a little different. What are your hidden talents that are not known to your team or your close ones?
See, I do a lot of doodling
Okay. Okay.
and I do calligraphy. And,
Okay.
you know, on that, my observation has been that when I doodle, I actually become present in that moment.
Nice.
And, the people may look that I'm looking on the notebook, but, you can actually hear and see everything. So I do that a lot in meetings and when I'm attending conferences.
There you go. So I'm just showing Adesh while this interview was on, I was also doodling the same thing. So thank you.
Amazing.
That's how I gather myself actually. That I'm so much into it that I and so on the left hand side mostly will be the notes from the meeting. On the right hand side, I ensure I keep a space where I'm able to do anything. Okay. What are some recommendations for a podcast, book, or a movie or a series that you are going through right now, or probably over the period of time? Do you listen to podcasts?
I listen to podcasts. I've started listening to podcasts recently
Uh-huh.
in the last few weeks, but I read a lot.
Huh.
So, um, one of the books that I would recommend everyone to read is many books I can say, but one of them is called Factfulness, right? And the other one I would recommend is A Short History of Nearly Everything,
Yeah.
and say Sapiens,
Ah.
or there's a book called Gene. And
Gene. Okay.
basically, the reason I'm recommending this is because they're all based on kind of science,
Mm.
but it tells you how vast the universe is,
Yeah.
both the macro universe and the micro universe, and even underwater, under earth, over the sky, and how we believe science that as something that we know exactly, but humans right now don't even know 1% of the universe, right?
True.
And what is a fact today is actually was considered as foolishness only 10 or 50 or sometimes 100 years ago, right? And what we know as surety today is likely to change in 100 or,
Yeah.
sometimes 100 years, sometimes 50 years. So I think it gives you a perspective of vastness and endless possibilities, and not get too judgmental and too dogmatic about anything, right? Be open to possibilities.
Any movies, any series that you're watching?
Yes. So, my wife and I recently finished watching The Crown.
Ah. Okay.
And it was pretty intriguing, very interestingly made, quite amazing.
Mhm.
And, so that's something that we recently watched.
How does one stay relevant? How does one stay consistent?
See, I will give a work-related answer, right?
Sure.
And then I'll give a general answer. So when you work in a company, right? You have a job description. Your manager gives you certain KRAs,
Yeah.
and generally the tendency of most people is to say, "How do I exceed the KRA, and how do I get my manager to say meets
Right.
expectations or exceed
Yeah.
expectations?"
Yeah.
Right? I think if we follow that too seriously, we will, over time, will become less than mediocre,
Hmm.
right? The job description or the KRA is really the hole in the donut,
Hmm.
right? Don't just focus on that. Focus on what is remaining in the donut, right? That's where the real part which you can eat is there, right?
Interesting.
The whole cannot be eaten, But if the whole donut exists, there is no donut, right?
Yeah.
So make sure that there is a hole, you're meeting those requirements, but you need to become your own boss, and you need to become your own conductor, and you need to become your own charioteer to expand the donut and to travel and experience the whole donut, right? And don't get limited by what people think of you, what people want from you. You need to be your own boss. You need to be, a self. This is really what I would define as a self leadership, right?
Hmm.
And while this is work related, the same thing applies to non-work life,
Right.
right? So be interested not just in your immediate family or your immediate circle of friends or your colleagues, right? That's the hole in the donut, right? Connect to larger sets of people.
Yeah.
The more diverse set of people that you know and meet with, the richer your life becomes, more knowledgeable you would become. And, it will work in every life, right? And make sure that you're contributing, finding time to contribute something to the society, say 1 hour a week, right? Make sure that you're, learning for 3, 4 hours a week, something or the other, right? And make sure you're meeting people from different backgrounds, not just people who are in the same job, who went to the same college, because then you're living, you could become a well in the frog,
Hmm.
a frog in the well, rather.
Wow, that's a good way to end this episode as well. Thank you, Adesh. I've written 2 pages of the insights that I've captured with alongside some doodling. But thank you so much for spending this time, and it's been really rich for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well. I will ensure your details, the contact details, are mentioned in the description. Thank you so much, and it's been really fun for me.
Thank you very much, Prashant, for reaching out and for the wonderful, selfless work that you are doing, because it takes a lot of time and energy to create podcasts and to reach out to people, edit it, put it out there, and then respond to people who are asking different things. And I'm sure so many people are learning so many different things by listening to your podcast. So you're doing a great job there, Prashant.
Wow, thank you, Adesh. Means a lot. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.